What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind-the-scenes stuff. Arm yourselves typology stuff. I've been thinking about something I've noticed in NTJs, and I think the best way to describe it is compartmentalization. Because it feels like NTJs are able to be multiple sorts of people at the same time. Because something you'll notice is FE types, while they have different sides to them too, it's more like every side is informed by an awareness or a vibe. Every side of an FE type is controlled by a prevailing attitude. And I think that's a big reason why FE types don't feel very innocent, especially when they are older. And I think that has more to do with TI than anything. Because as we learned a while ago now, TI and FI are identity functions. And TI is always trying to get everything aligned with whatever TI is thinking and feeling for whatever reason TI is thinking and feeling in that direction. And maybe we should look at this like a flower. The introverted judging function is the center, and the extroverted judging function is the way the center is expressed in the world. So if TI is feeling optimistic about something, then the FE vibes, all those different sides of FE, can't help but be a little bit tinged with optimism. And the same thing with pessimism. As a TI type, you do this and you don't realize anything's weird about it, but you see it from the outside. It's weird watching people be pessimistically happy. But we explain all this to think about this NTJ compartmentalization thing. Because something you'll notice about NTJs, and I suppose SFPs, although I haven't studied this in them enough, but NTJs specifically, they're strange in the ways they order their thoughts and the ways they organize their identities, especially when they are engaging with the outside world. I think it's a consequence of SI, but STJs are as subject to FI as NTJs are, but STJs seem sincerely to dislike feeling hypocritical. Everyone is always hypocritical, but with TI types, they either accept the contradiction as part of their process, which is a difficult hurdle if you've never done it before, but it gets easier, or they hide their hypocrisies. STJs will fight their hypocrisies when confronted with them, because, and I think this is because they recognize that they're being hypocritical. To them, it makes sense, but they also recognize factually, or logically, at least in the way they use logic, it doesn't make sense or can't make sense, so they get aggressive. And also, STJs, I think this is one of the reasons they gravitate toward ideologies, which is something everybody does, TE types more so, STJs especially, because it's like outsourcing or crowdsourcing identity, after which they can engage in more particular individuality. Which is another thing, by the way. I've been thinking about STJs a lot lately. I don't think STJs are actually ideologues. I think they gravitate toward ideology in the way they do, for function, partially for fitting in, but also for dealing with the difficulty of trying to get everything aligned, especially when you are, by definition, an internally not aligned person. And that's the weirdest thing, by the way. I haven't been able to work this one out. Why is society so obsessed with everything lining up, or the idea of everything lining up, when things don't line up for anybody? And even in the ideology, shit doesn't line up. So why Why this obsession with detail that is ornamental at best? Is it a lead blanket? Probably. I'm not sure. We'll be thinking about it. And NTJs gravitate toward ideology too, but for them it is really just icing. They'll talk ideology, they will argue ideology, but just underneath that surface, they're a lot more individual, and it seems like they build out what they believe in grab bag fashion. And in my experience, once you break through that ideology layer, that base, well socialized ideology layer, they don't hide their contradictions much. They don't fight their contradictions. They act like their contradictions are self evident and totally rational. Even when the things they actually believe stand in direct opposition to the shit, the ideology icing shit, they were just arguing so hard for 10 minutes ago. Like a hardline Marxist who 10 minutes from now will be telling you how valuable capitalism is as a tool. Gun grabber NTJ, going on and on about how citizens shouldn't be armed. Owns 5 guns, shoots regularly, and has killed someone in defense of themselves. One who says every culture is valuable and studying subcultures is a way to chart the trajectory of a civilization. Speaks one language, doesn't travel, has zero interest in studying any culture or subculture. Maybe even thinks history is a pointless thing to study. That one's an exaggeration because NI types, in my experience, are history junkies, but I'm using the exaggeration to make a point. It's like they take the most valuable things to believe and then mash them together. And where a TI type would have a meltdown, 1, trying to sort that out, 2, of embarrassment if they were ever called on it, an NTJ, they don't seem to think about these contradictions. I think they do, but I also think FI is an unpleasant, unfriendly taskmaster, and they let it have its way so they don't have to deal with that shit until they're forced to, or until, and this is a funny thing about FI, the more you allow FI to have its way, and it's like a child starved for attention, it'll put all this contradictory shit on you and then expect you to just go with it, like try to steamroll you, even though it's you. And if you don't want to deal with it and let it have its way, it actually gets angrier. Maybe you'll get some momentary bliss or calm, and then in a couple months, it will be shower crying, the classic. But I love thinking about humans in terms of balance and builds in games. That is a drawback that you deal with when you have also a bunch of benefits. Because NTJs, when they are functioning well, can hold all of these contradictory beliefs simultaneously via compartmentalization, they do get to reap all the material and emotional rewards, like overclocking. It's probably not healthy long term, and you will pay for it. However, while things are going well, things are going very well. As in, with the Marxist capitalist example, you get to feel like you are part of the revolution, you're one of the good guys, while also lining your pockets, which is something you typically have to wait until after the revolution to do. Or the gun grabbing example. If your ethics are aligned with the ruling authorities, then yeah, you don't want a population that can challenge that authority, even possibly challenge that authority. However, if the Grim Reaper comes knocking and he's wearing a ski mask, you aren't the one. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I've always loved this example. This super liberal ENTJ woman talking about how or why populations shouldn't be armed, but she has an arsenal and she has an attorney, 24/7 attorney service on call. So if she's ever in a shooting, she calls her attorneys before she calls the police so they can get this whole killing someone thing sorted. And then there are uglier examples, like the INTJ who believes in central authority. Travis Bickleass despises degeneracy. Because, yeah, being a degenerate of any sort is bad. It's bad for you, it's bad for society. But then also delving deep into the depths of the most despicable degeneracies. The grossest shit. The most dangerous shit. And that's something I'll give TI types. I think TI types are a lot better at engaging in auto-shaming. If a TI type goes against its prevailing attitude, even if nobody sees, it will feel shame. It might not change its attitude. It might hide the fact that it is in fact doing something it's ashamed of, but it will feel the shame. That's the weird thing about INFJs. I think they live in shame. The most likely to feel ashamed of themselves, but also the least likely to own up to it or do anything about it. And maybe that's where their malice and mob tactics come from. Putting yourself around people you feel superior to and playing the not me, never me game is a lot easier than addressing the root cause. NTJs pay the emotional breakdown tax. Other TI types play the do something about it game. Publicly or privately, sneakily, but they do something. Anyway, one of the interesting things, textural things I'm fascinated with about NTJ compartmentalization is the way they can retain their innocence, at least partly. Because you'll watch NTJs be very keen and very naive at the same time. And I think it's because they need part of themselves that is able to deal with the uglier parts of the world. But because they compartmentalize, that version of themselves and a gentler version of themselves usually won't need to interact. Now, they will during breakdowns, and I think that's a big part of the breakdown. But outside those breakdowns, you can, at one moment, be dealing with a very calloused person, seemingly unfeeling, unempathetic, unsympathetic. And then in the next moment, be dealing with someone who is very much a human, childlike even. Whereas FE types are more overall calloused or overall warm. But it's funny the way life works, because I think FE types, because of the way the world is, trend toward callousness, which is why you'll occasionally meet FE types who present to be childlike or warm or innocent, kind, supportive. But you can tell that's not what they are. They know how to do it. They know how to make lesser people think that's what they are, but you know they aren't. And given time, you'll see that. Whereas with NTJs, it's as if these separate sides of themselves coexist simultaneously. Their warmth is not an act, but it's also not the full picture. When an NTJ turns on you, it feels like a betrayal, because in a way it is. Well, all betrayal is betrayal, But with NTJs, when it happens, it's more painful because you don't see it coming. And other FI types do something similar. You'll see it. You'll see something similar in ENFPs, for example, except with them, they have so many different sides firing off at all times. If you're even slightly threat cognizant, you should know something is gonna happen there, bad. And with FE types, it's more like, you son of a bitch, how did I not see this coming when I saw this coming? It's completely a shame on you. Well, shame on you as in me situation, not shame on them. It is shame on them, but it's really your fault. A snake bit you. What did you think was going to happen? But with NTJs, and maybe this is a consequence of being an FE type dealing with NTJs, you get lost in their kinder side as much as they do. And it's really weird. Have you ever looked at an NTJ relationship? Those relationships can and do work, but there's always this almost stomach sucked in tension around them. And they can be doing the most lovey-dovey shit with each other, but something is off there internally, and you can feel it. And this isn't directly connected, but I was thinking about STJs again. STJs feel like sailing glaciers. An ISTJ is the definitive captain of that glacier. ESTJs will run around all over the top of the glacier like crackheads, but they're still on the glacier. Whereas NTJs, I haven't played Majora's Mask, but another thing I watch a bunch of videos on. It's like the Majora's Mask masks. You have a few of them, and you're always the same person, but when one of the masks is on, you're not exactly the same person. Which is distinct from what INFJs do, because they're like actual shapeshifters. There's no mask and there's no original form. There's just this bucket of liquid malice. Whereas with NTJs, there is absolutely an array of masks. There's also a mask wearer, and there is the strain of wearing the masks. INTJs, it's more like a fragile adult and some pretty solid masks. And ENTJs, it is some ferocious masks, but a child who needs to wear them. And this is another thing I'm noticing about the breakdowns. When INTJs break down, it's more like a sustained low. It's really bad, but they're still at the helm. It's just a shit ship and a shit voyage. Whereas when ENTJs break down, you're lucky if they aren't in prison afterward, or someone isn't dead afterward, or they're lucky if they aren't fired. They're lucky if they're able to stand, their legs shut down. INTJ breakdowns look to me like very acute bad depression. ENTJ breakdowns are full-blown psychosis. And that's probably why ENTJs and INTPs are made for one another. My guilty little parasitism. I know how to prevent your breakdowns, or at least prepare you for them, stretch out the time between them, and I know how to care for you when you're broken, and pull you back together when you're shattered. Lovingly. Caringly. Not because I should, but because I want to. Because caring for a broken ENTJ feels really good. Feels like what you were made to do. And then, during their uptime, you get to benefit from a partnership with a pit bull that can think sometimes. Originally, the pleasure came strictly from the dommy-mommy thing, But as we've soured with time like milk, it's not even, well, it is pleasure, but it's more benefit comes from the mammalian hand grenade side of things. But that doesn't detract from the selfish pleasure of caring for them and guiding them and giving them purpose and making them feel safe. And thinking back, the funny thing is, I think the dynamic has always been like this. It's just the wrapping paper was different. It doesn't feel like there's as much need to play pretend and pussyfoot anymore. Being this straightforward with the facts is a much harder sell, but is there any other product you want to buy? For me, not really. And looking back, it feels more irresponsible on my part than anything playing around. And this video took a weird turn, but I had a grappling session with a surprise ENTJ woman who was straight up my alley. And it didn't go anywhere, but it was refreshing. This is what I am, this is what you are, and we worked it out very quickly. None of this fucking around in nothing land for months. Just a couple days. And if the way I've been talking makes it sound like I'm a proponent of total INTP domination or total ENTJ submission, that's not what I'm talking about. I still want to be stepped on. But that's where the balance comes from. I give your energy a purpose. You give my purpose an energy. Okay, it's like a lion taming show at a circus. A tamer without a lion is nothing. It's just a dude standing there. A lion without a tamer is a problem. But together, it's a show. It is a productive enterprise. And that comes from the fact these are opposing forces synchronizing. That's what it is. That's where the real... There are so many different rushes that happen, and I'm sure every sort is different when you date your shadow. But for INTPs and ENTJs, one of the most pleasant rushes comes from signaling something and maybe not even realizing you're signaling it, but then having your signal responded to in the way you want it responded to or the way you really need it responded to without either of you needing to say anything. It's like the prequel story of yin and yang. How did these two crazy characters meet up and get in sync? It feels really, really good. And not even, that's the other thing, not even having to think about it, really. It just happens. I don't like Joe Rogan very much, but I forget where I heard it. It was probably in a Beige Frequency video from a long time ago, and whoever it was shitting on this concept for a joke. But I thought it was a really good joke. Do you ever see animals fucking and you wish you didn't have a language? I understand exactly what that means, and that is exactly how synchronizing, even temporarily, with an advanced ENTJ feels. So good. That was a bit of a detour, but it's all connected. Anyway, NTJs compartmentalize so they can overclock and be both superhuman and also superhuman until they have to pay the price for it. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.